Hi. Today's topic will be ICD-10 or the International Classification of Diseases 10th revision. For the main points of the video presentation, it will be about the overview of ICD, history, ICD-10 coding, licensing, copyright, ICD-10 in the Philippines, and a quick dive to ICD-11. International Classification of Diseases is the foundation for the identification of health trends and statistics globally, and the international standard for reporting diseases and health conditions. It is the diagnostic classification standard for all clinical and research purposes. ICD is the bedrock for health statistics. It maps the human condition from birth to death, such as any injury or disease we encounter in life, and anything we might die of is coded. For the purpose of, first, ICD-10 allows the systematic recording, analysis, interpretation, and comparison of mortality and morbidity data collected in different countries or regions and at different times. Second, ICD-10 ensures semantic interoperability and reusability of recorded data for the different use cases beyond mere health statistics, including decision support, resource allocation, reimbursement, guidelines, and more. The history of the ICD traces back to Italy in the 15th century. The first international classification edition is the International List of Causes of Death, adopted by International Statistical Institute in 1893 by the first president of the ISI, who was Rawson W. Rawson. As well as, Florence Nightingale was a pioneer in the development of statistical graphics. In the year 1909, ICD-2 was launched and renamed as International Classification of Causes of Sickness and Death, but on 1929, ICD-4 was released. It was transferred to categories based on etiology. The World Health Organization was entrusted with the ICD at its creation in 1948 and published the sixth version, ICD-6, that incorporated morbidity for the first time, and in 1967, the World Health Organization Nomenclature Regulations adopted stipulation that member states use the most current ICD revision for mortality and morbidity statistics. In the year 1975, ICD-9 transformed the digit code from 4-digit to 5-digit code. It includes narrative MBD, model-based definition, description similar to DSM-2 language. Here comes 1978, where the classification and diagnosis of mental disorder was refined. And in 1982, the diagnostic instruments and algorithms shaped and refined. Just imagine how ICD-10 is getting excellent or much more better than average. ICD-10 was endorsed by the 43rd World Health Assembly in May 1990. It is cited in more than 20,000 scientific articles and used by more than 100 countries around the world, allows more than 55,000 different codes and permits tracking of many new diagnoses and procedures, a significant expansion on the 17,000 codes available in ICD-9. ICD-11 was released on June 18, 2018 to allow member states to prepare for implementation, including translating ICD into their national languages. The highlight of ICD-11 is that it is the conceptual framework independent of language and culture, integrating terminology and classification with an end-to-end digital solution such as API, tools, online and offline. ICD-11 enables, for the first time, the counting of traditional medicine services and encounter. WHOFIC is the standardized common language for coding a wide range of information about health and well-being, and about interventions delivered to individuals and populations. Includes three core reference classifications: the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems, ICD, the International Classification of Functioning, Disability and Health, ICF, and Environmental Factors. The International Classification of Health Interventions, ICHI. ICD-10 consists of 3 volumes, the Volume 1 or the tabular list of the cause of death titles and the codes included and excluded of terms for cause of death titles. Volume 1 has 22 chapters, 11,404 character codes. The Volume 2, known as the Instruction Manual or the Description, Guidelines, and Coding Rules. The Volume 3 or the Alphabetical Index is the Diseases and Nature of Injury, External Causes of Injury, Table of Drugs and Chemicals.
Volume 1, or the tabular list, is an alphanumeric listing of diseases, disease groups, and health-related problems. It contains inclusion and exclusion notes and some coding rules. It has 22 chapters and 11,404 character codes. Volume 2, or the Instruction Manual, contains an introduction to the classification and instructions regarding how to use the classification to code death certificates, hospital medical records, and other forms of health information. Specifically contains guidelines for certification and rules for mortality coding, guidelines for recording and coding for morbidity data. Here is some examples of information can be seen in Volume 2. Volume 3, or the Alphabetical Index, is an alphabetical list of the diseases and conditions which have codes in the tabular list. Please note that the index is not a librarian index, but it is designed to enable you to identify codes for verification in the tabular list. It has separate parts for diseases, accidents, and substances. See the example below on how Volume 3 index looks like. Now let's discuss about the ICD-10 index structure. Lead terms. It is positioned to the far left of the column and usually are nouns. It is also used when looking up the name of the disease or condition. Essential modifiers. These indented modifiers or qualifiers are usually varieties, sites, or circumstances that affect coding. Each modifier has a dash, or a series of dashes, to indicate different sites or circumstances that affect coding. Non-essential modifiers. These modifiers does not affect code assignment appear in parentheses or curved brackets after the condition. ICD-10 chapters. It is divided into 22 chapters. The first character of the ICD code is a letter, and each letter is associated with a particular chapter, except for the letter D, which is used in both Chapter 2, Neoplasms, and Chapter 3, Diseases of the Blood and Blood-Forming Organs and Certain Disorders, involving the immune mechanism, and the letter H, which is used in both Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. Each chapter contains sufficient 3-character categories to cover its content. Chapter 22 has codes U00 to U49 are to be used by WHO for the provisional assignment of new diseases of uncertain etiology. Now let's discuss ICD-10 code structure. Category is 3-character code that is mandatory level of coding for international reporting to the WHO mortality database. It always begins with a letter then followed by numbers. Subcategory identifies the sites, cause of the disease or condition, symptoms, and stage of the condition. 5th, 6th character further defines specificity such as location laterality. Some codes have 7th character, which can be either a letter or a number and called as an extender. It changes the entire meaning of the description. For example, initial or subsequent encounter.
The World Health Organization is able to issue commercial licenses to companies wishing to incorporate and distribute WHO classifications in their software products for sale to customers in certain countries. WHO is able to issue internal licenses to organizations wishing to incorporate WHO classifications into their internal information systems for use of employees and use for administrative purposes, for example, health records management. ICD has been translated into 43 languages. 117 countries use the system to report mortality data, a primary indicator of health status. ICD-10 is available in the 6 official languages of WHO: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish, in print. However, only the English and French versions are available in database format.
ICD-10 in the Philippines. The Department of Health, through the National ICD-10 Technical Working Group, headed by the National Epidemiology Center, in its aim to assist healthcare providers in the implementation of ICD-10 diagnostic classification, initiated the development of the Philippine ICD-10 modifications, first edition. This is not intended to replace the principal ICD-10 international standards of WHO but complement them through additional information for local adoption and use. Let's take a quick dive to ICD-11. The 11th revision contains around 17,000 unique codes, more than 120,000 codable terms, and is now entirely digital, conceptual framework which is independent of language and culture. End-to-end digital solution, API, tools, online and offline. Up-to-date scientific knowledge with integration of terminology and classification. Improved usability, more clinical detail with less training time, and a full multilingual support, translations and outputs. For the first time, ICD-11 support the counting of traditional medicine services and encounters. New core chapters include diseases of the immune system, sleep-wake disorders, and conditions related to sexual health. All concepts for recording and reporting in primary care are included. And 35 countries are now using ICD-11. Here are the links for the references supporting the information for today's video. We've arrived at the end of today's presentation. Thank you for listening to us, and we hope we share with you some knowledge about ICD-10. Video made possible by Maria Kathrina O of Valenzuela and Mary Rose C. Enares, students for MI224. Have a great day ahead.